Let me say this to all the high net worth individuals in New York City. If you are one of the lions, you are welcome down to Florida. Bring your family. Have a great time. If not, then stay wherever the hell you are and enjoy the crevasse you have made for yourself in New York City. Now, we should take a moment to explore what young white people in New York City are voting for. And the answer is they're voting for the Bernie Sandersization of American society. That is what they're voting for. And so in that fight, one of the things they care deeply about is virtue signaling about how much they hate anyone who is connected to the system. So in a city that is quite heavily Jewish, I mean, New York City is one of the most Jewish cities in the country demographically, they are poised to elect somebody who is full-scale anti-Semitic. That, again, is not a gigantic shock because this is the way that the Democratic Party has been trending for quite a long time. The squad has been trending that way. The squad is that way. And so this is just the squadization of the Democratic Party. But it is telling. It does mean something. And so what you have is a bunch of young white people who are disillusioned with their own society. Now, I've talked about my new book, Lions and Scavengers, which is coming out in early September. You can pre-order right now at Daily Wire's shop. But these are the scavengers. This is the coalition of scavengers that is coming together on behalf of Zohran Mamdani, people who hate the system, who live off of the kill made by the lions. New York City is reliant on the wealth generation of Wall Street. New York City is reliant on the wealth generation of the small shop bodega owner who simply wants to generate enough money for his family, but now has to fight off street crime because of people like Zohran Mamdani and his policies. Those are the people who actually generate. Those are the lions in New York City. And then you have the scavengers. And the scavengers are a bunch of college-educated leeches with sociology degrees from Wellesley. Those are those people, the Ella Emhoffs of the world, all uniting and virtue signaling about how much they hate anyone who is productive and decent. They're Bernie Sanders fans. And I've called Bernie Sanders a leech on the ass of society. And I think, frankly, that is being kind to Bernie Sanders, a man so useless he was once thrown out of a commune for failing to do work. But Bernie Sanders was on with Joe Rogan, of course, and here he was suggesting, along with Rogan, that basically the New York City primary has turned into a referendum on Israel.
I got involved, and I'm supporting Mr. Mamdani.
A lot of people are. Well, especially after that debate.
Right.
It seems like everybody else was essentially saying, I've been to Israel more than you've been to Israel. I'm going to go to Israel before you do.
Right. They think they're campaigning to be foreign, minister for Israel or something.
Okay, I'm just going to point out right now that if you watch that debate and your takeaway from that debate was that Zohran Mamdani is the reasonable one on the stage on the issue of Israel, that everyone else on the stage who just said Israel has a right to exist as a Jewish state is wrong and crazy, and Zohran Mamdani is reasonable for believing that Israel does not have a right to exist. That is a luxury belief, my friends. That is a belief that is held by a small sliver of very, very well-educated white people and psychotics and ambulatory psychotics in the Democratic Party, but that describes a large share of the Democratic voting base today. So what does this mean nationally? What does this mean nationally for the Democratic Party? Well, once again, it means that the Democratic Party is quite likely to swing to the left. Now, I've predicted this for a while, that what you are seeing in the United States is a Democratic Party that does not know where to go next. It's a Democratic Party that's lost in the wilderness, and so they are looking at what to do. And what they believe they ought to do now, it appears, is move hard to the left. There's been this battle inside the Democratic Party between the more practical people and pragmatic people, like, say, Congressman Richie Torres or John Fetterman, or hell, even Nancy Pelosi at this point, and people like AOC. And the ambulatory psychotics are going to win. And they're going to win because Democrats are constantly, people on the left are constantly looking to the youth of America as a sort of bellwether for where they should go next. They're constantly looking at the radicals in their own party and saying, well, are they that radical or are they just idealistic? Are they just the future? And a party that goes along with this trash for decades ends up with Zohran Mamdani as its leadership and AOC as its leadership. And that is the movement of the Democratic Party. I've been warning you. AOC is very likely to be the Democratic nominee for president in 2028. She is. I'm just saying. Okay, by the polling data, that is true, by the way. The only thing that could possibly stop AOC are black voters in South Carolina again. And that's the only thing that prevented Bernie Sanders, that old useless wobbly, from becoming the Democratic nominee in 2020. That is the only thing that stopped that. So are black voters going to stand up to the next Zohran Mamdani on a national level? or AOC on national. I don't know. You don't know. What I am seeing is a Democratic Party that is coming to grips with the fact that it is now basically just red. I don't mean red like red Republican. I mean red like commie. You're seeing a Democratic Party that is beginning to concede to its younger generation. And good luck to you if that's what you got. But we're playing a very dangerous game, because the other thing that we ought to mention here is that if you become a major party nominee in the United States, one of the two major parties in the United States on a presidential level, there's at least a 40% shot you're president of the United States. So everybody is playing with fire. People were poo-pooing Mamdani because he is a psychotic, because his politics are insane. People were poo-pooing that, and then it turns out that he is likely to be the next mayor of New York City. And so people who are poo-pooing AOC right now, you're likely to be very disappointed when it turns out that she is the Democratic nominee come 2028. And then when she has a serious shot at becoming president, because again, any member of one of the two major parties who is running for president in 2028 has at least a 40% shot of being president. And God forbid the economy collapses. God forbid something goes seriously wrong on the foreign policy front. If that happens, then you could very easily end up with somebody as far left as an AOC as president of the United States. This is why I truly believe that the Democratic Party needs to moderate. I do care, actually, what happens inside the Democratic Party. I believe the Democratic Party is cleaning itself out, that the Democratic Party has made itself hostage to the demands of a radical minority who do not represent the vast base of the Democratic Party, but who do show up in primaries. And by the way, this does speak to the problems in the primary process in all the parties. Everybody likes to rag on the smoke-filled back rooms that used to pick party nominees because parties are vehicles for victory. But getting rid of those smoke-filled back rooms turns out very often to embolden the most radical members of your party constituency, and that's how you end up with a Zohran Mamdani as the Democratic Party nominee. And that's not good for New York City, because now New York City is going to be left with a choice between Mamdani, Andrew Cuomo, who just lost the Democratic primary, and Eric Adams. And there's a very good shot that Adams and Cuomo split that remaining independent vote, and Mamdani ends up running right up the left side and taking the mayoralty. We'll get to more on this in a moment. First, your online activity. It's not actually private. Data brokers track everything you do online, your browsing, shopping habits, even your beliefs. In the United States, they can legally sell that information. Companies buy this data to target you with ads. Social media platforms use it to control what content you see. During elections, it's used to influence your vote. To protect your privacy and maintain your autonomy online, you should be using ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN routes all my online activity through secure encrypted servers, making it impossible for my internet provider to see what I'm doing online. That means you can browse without feeling like somebody's watching your shoulder all the time. It also hides your IP address, that unique number that identifies you online, and allows data brokers to build and sell profiles about you. Without access to your IP or activity data, those companies really don't have anything to work with. I'm traveling all the time these days. I'm using public Wi-Fi. That makes me vulnerable, or would if I didn't use ExpressVPN. Plus, ExpressVPN is remarkably simple to use. Just one click activates protection across all my devices on up to 8 devices simultaneously for me and my family. Find out how you can get 4 months free by scanning the QR code on screen, clicking the link in the description box below, or by heading on over to expressvpn.com/Ben Shapiro Show. So if you're a Democrat today, you should be a little scared if you're a Democrat who's in the realm of the sane, who doesn't believe that the solution to housing costs is complete rent control and destruction of all possible new development. If you're somebody who in New York City believes that perhaps the radical overpricing of everything has to do with the insane tax and regulatory structure of New York City, if you are what they are now calling an abundance Democrat, right? If you are an Ezra Klein, Derek Thompson Democrat, I had Ezra on the show to talk about this. If you're a Democrat who lives in the world of reality, such that you actually understand that capitalism is a wealth generator, and you just want more redistribution, right? You're more of a European left-winger than you are a full-scale communist. Understand that you have built this. You have decided to give credence to these people. You have decided that it was very important to pat them on the head as they said insanely radical things about every particular topic. And how radical is this group of people? This group of people is so insanely radical that the campaign director for Zohran Mamdani recently posted about Luigi Mangione, the alleged murderer of United Healthcare's CEO, Brian Thompson. Quote, Mangione is one of the few entities not rejected online. which is ironic considering how harmful he deemed social media. And while his remarkable good looks hardly hurt, anyone who thinks his acclaim is rooted primarily in aesthetics is missing the point, probably on purpose. He is adored, not only because he dared to target a leader of one of the most vile, self-enriching industries darkening our society today, but because he dared to defy the stasis of nihilistic rejection. The question is not whether he was right or wrong. It's how many others he has shaken loose. That is the campaign director for the future mayor of New York City in all likelihood. That is what you Democrats created. Maybe you ought to think about where things went wrong. That might be worthwhile at this point in time. And again, this speaks to Democrats on a national level. It is you who have decided to elevate the absolutely execrable Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to a position of leadership in your party. That was you. You decided to take Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and make them leaders in your party. It was Nancy Pelosi who decided that she was going to give those people a bear hug and put them on the cover of Rolling Stone. That was you. It was you elderly Democrats who thought that the new wave was just jet fuel that you could use for your own ambition. And it turns out the revolution always eats its own first. Robespierre is first to the guillotine. So I hope you enjoy, Democrats, because this is what you have created. Speaking of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said on Tuesday that President Trump's decision to strike Iran without seeking congressional approval is, quote, absolutely and clearly grounds for impeachment. And this is the Democratic Party that you guys are pushing. A single strike on the Iranian nuclear facilities is grounds for impeachment, according to AOC, who had nothing to say while Joe Biden bombed a wide variety of countries, as it turns out, ranging from Yemen to Syria while he was president of the United States. President Trump immediately responded in a lengthy post on his Truth social network saying, quote, stupid AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, one of the dumbest people in Congress, is now calling for my impeachment, despite the fact that crooked and corrupt Democrats have already done that twice before. He also labeled her the mouse, which the man has a gift for nicknames. I will say that. Meanwhile, Al Green, who has made a living off of calling for President Trump's impeachment, announced yesterday yet another impeachment attempt against President Trump. When he's not waving his cane, he's calling for impeachment. He's all run out of canes.
I rise because we are at the intersection of democracy and autocracy. I rise to announce that at this moment in time, I have filed HRES 537. HRES 537 is a privileged resolution. HRES 537 has been filed because I believe that the President of the United States has committed an impeachable act.
Oh, well, you do? I mean, is it a day ending in YL? I was at the State of the Union address where he was waving his cane and screaming at the President of the United States. So, again, nothing new there. The House voted to table Green's resolution, by the way. Over half of Democrats joined with Republicans to kill the effort. Now, President Trump didn't just go after Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for her recent stupidity calling for his impeachment. He also went after Jasmine Crockett. He did say that she is unqualified for office, AOC, but, quote, far more qualified than Crockett, who is a seriously low IQ individual. He also compared Ocasio-Cortez to Ilhan Omar, who he said, quote, does nothing but complain about our country. Yet the failed country that she comes from doesn't have a government, is drenched in crime and poverty, and is rated one of the worst in the world if it's even rated at all. Again, point to President Trump right there. Speaking of Jasmine Crockett, she was also on the impeachment bandwagon. Here was Jasmine Crockett complaining that she had not received her briefing about Iran yet. Yes, America waits with bated breath to hear the opinions of Jasmine Crockett about Iran's foreign policy.
But I wanted to jump on because obviously it's been bombs, missiles, all kinds of stuff. To be clear, I've still not gotten any type of briefing. So just so y'all know, nobody's tried to call us in for a top secret briefing at all as whole sitting members of Congress. But, you know, whatever.
This unbelievably stupid person, unbelievably stupid individual. It is difficult to watch this person and believe this person's in Congress. But then again, the collective IQ of Congress could, you know, maybe power a toaster for like a minute and a half. I don't know. Maybe toast a piece of bread slightly. The intellectual electricity generated by all of Congress. Jasmine Crockett provides zero of that intellectual energy. She says that she's the one supposed to be making the decisions on bombing Iran. Thank God she's not. My goodness.
and to understand enough about the Constitution to the extent that I'm the one that's supposed to make the decision or at least get a vote.
Oh, goodness gracious. AOC fired back at the president, quote, "Mr. President, don't take out your anger on me. I'm just a silly girl." I mean, first of all, you are. Quote, "Take it out on whoever convinced you to betray the American people and our Constitution by illegally bombing Iran and dragging us into war. It only took you 5 months to break almost every promise you made." By the way, did AOC have any comment whatsoever when Joe Biden was striking random families in Afghanistan with Hellfire missiles as he pulled out in ignominious disgrace from Afghanistan? Of course not. Of course not. This is your future Democratic Party. Zohran Mamdani, AOC, Jasmine Crockett. This is your young rising wave of Democrats. And I hope you enjoy it, y'all, because you created it. It was you. You went so nuts that President Trump became president in 2016 that you decided to abandon any principles you ever had and simply throw your hat in with the nuttiest among you. And so once again, all I'm saying is that you're effing around and now you're finding out. And you do not have my sympathy. You do not. The people who have my sympathy in New York City are the people who are actually just good tax-paying citizens who want to go about their daily business and raise their families, the lions of our society. Those are the people who have my sympathy. And I do feel bad for those people. Many of them can't afford to leave. I really do feel bad for those people, truly. But if you were complicit in this, if you kept voting Democrat year after year after year after year because you didn't like that George W. Bush was pro-traditional marriage, or you didn't like that Donald Trump had appointed justices to the Supreme Court who didn't love Roe versus Wade, if you decided that you had to vote Democrat because you needed to virtue signal about how much you had sympathy for Hamasniks, or if you decided that you were going to vote Democrat because it was imperative that you send a message to those terrible red state Republicans about COVID, then this is your fault. This is you. And you do not have my sympathies. And so, as I say, if you are one of the lions, you are welcome down to Florida. Come, bring your family, have a great time. Florida's wonderful. If not, then stay wherever the hell you are and enjoy the crevasse you have made for yourself in New York City. Well, that's all for now, folks. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts down below. Be sure to check out all of the other great content on my channel. I'll see you here next time.